My beloved, do you think it's an accident that you're hearing my voice right now? No. Heaven planned this moment long before you took your first breath. Here on Holy Voices, we share the whispers of eternity, the messages that change hearts and awaken destinies. If your soul is ready, stay with me, because what you're about to hear might be the very word your spirit has been waiting for. Your $100 gift through Super Thanks is not just support, it's prophecy. You are speaking into your own future harvest. The person who turned you down is drowning in their own remorse, totally engrossed in thinking about you. According to psychological research, they are suffering from phantom limb syndrome of the soul. They remove you from their lives, yet they can still feel your presence blazing in all the places you used to be. The cosmos wasn't punishing you for being rejected. You were taken from a reality that was too small to accommodate what you were becoming by the universe, which was carrying out the most exacting spiritual surgery. Someone is totally at your mercy now that you've entered your villain era, addicted to you like a narcotic they can't get off but long for. Before any chosen person may accept their actual inheritance, they must go through what seems to be spiritual devastation. It wasn't a random time when you were rejected. It was the cruelest yet most accurate intervention in the universe, pulling you out of a position that was stifling your grandeur like a serpent gradually enclosing your potential. You believed that you were being turned away, but in reality, you were being freed from a world that could never fully grasp the scope of your destiny. Since it was the old you in every spiritual way, the rejection felt like death. The one who was like oxygen, seeking acceptance. Who turned down your light so that others could feel at ease? You deserved spiritual feasts, but you took emotional breadcrumbs instead. It was time for that version to die. Furthermore, death is never kind, not even spiritual death. Like a tornado, it tears through your mind, leaving destruction in its wake. Tornadoes, however, make way for hitherto unheard of new growth. Your energy signature was changing, adjusting, and rising to such high frequencies that it started to shake everyone in your orbit like earthquakes through their world. The individual who turned you down began to feel a disruption in their meticulously created universe. Subtle at first, like a whisper on the verge of awareness, but as your metamorphosis accelerated, it became more and more obvious. The person who rejected you believed that life would go on as usual if you were dismissed. However, energy doesn't work the way they think it does. A void is created when you take away a frequency as strong as yours from someone's world, and nature hates a vacuum. What quantum physicists refer to as entanglement at a distance was created when that nothingness started to tug at them with a gravitational force that was beyond comprehension or resistance. Your higher frequency was rewriting their neurological pathways, even though you were no longer physically there. This made you the phantom pain in their broken link to real power. This was not punishment, it was spiritual destruction. Everything had to be cleaned out to make room for your appearance because it was the prelude to something so great. The cosmos was preparing you for your first appearance as the main character in your own story. And the idea that you required anyone's approval to shine was being dispelled by each tear you shed. Something extraordinary began to occur in the electromagnetic field surrounding you as you rose like a phoenix with titanium wings from the ashes of that rejection. The characteristics that the individual stated were excessive, intense, and overwhelming abruptly turned into the precise frequencies that started to haunt their dreams and hound their thoughts in the daytime. They didn't learn relief from your absence. They learned the experience of spiritual famine from it. Most people never comprehend the magnetic principles that govern the cosmos. Additionally, the rules of attraction between you and them are being rewritten as a result of the recent total polarity reversal you experienced. Where the previous rejecter is now trapped in your gravitational attraction, pulled toward a light that no longer requires their reflection to generate its own brilliance, whereas before you circled around their approval like a planet longing for the warmth of its sun. The other person is being affected by this magnetic reversal in ways that are beyond their logical comprehension and break their carefully cultivated calm. With the desperate regularity of an addict looking for their next fix, you catch them browsing your social media accounts. Students' eyes widening upon witnessing your metamorphosis. The driver passes locations where they could perhaps catch a glimpse of you. The pitiful hope of a chance meeting that could provide you with another boost of energy makes your heart race. When you don't belong in a conversation, your name comes up. They can't stop saying your name as if it were a spell that will somehow bring you back into their world. You've acquired what spiritual alchemists refer to as diamond immunity, a crystalline clarity that renders you impervious to their frantic efforts to entice you back into their orbit, just as attraction toward your energy reaches previously unheard of levels of intensity. Like a drowning person grabbing for a life preserver, you can feel the reaching across the emptiness. However, the stronghold of self-worth you have built from the ruins of rejection is impervious to despair. High-quality people are now drawn to you like moths to flame by your intensity, which has been polished by the fire of abandonment. However, you are no longer exhausting yourself in order to illuminate others. Powerful but sustained, magnetic but selected, dazzling but self-contained, you've transformed into a controlled flame. The one who wrote you off as being too much has seen you become just right for everyone who uses your high frequency, but at the same time, you have become totally unreachable by those who opted for stagnation rather than progress. The most exquisite cosmic joke has been masterfully crafted by the cosmos. The distance grows with each breath you take in your new world, and the readiness to appreciate you comes just as you've moved past the point at which you need that appreciation. However, success is not the end of your ascension journey. For the rejecter, it intensifies into something much more damaging to their mental health. Their brain has literally rewired itself around the idea of you, which neuroscientists refer to as a cognitive fixation. It appears that every neuronal pathway returns to memories of your metamorphosis. The perspective of what was lost filters every recollection. Every possible future event is weighed against the likelihood that you will never again come into contact with your particular type of energy. The individual is going through something more than remorse. Living in a constant state of what if is destroying sanity like termites in the mind. What if there had been bravery to deal with your intensity? What if there had been growth rather than shrinkage? What if people had viewed your standards as a call to excellence rather than a condemnation of mediocrity? Therapists refer to these incessantly recurring questions as rumination spirals, which get deeper and more engrossing with each revolution. Your psychological dominance's most amazing feature is that you accomplished it without exerting any effort. You aren't playing games to keep people interested, giving conflicting messages, or breadcrumbing with sporadic attention. Your total detachment from their world has grown more potent than your ever-present presence. The ultimate truth about human psychology has been revealed to you. People place a far higher value on things that are out of their reach than on those that are readily available. Scarcity dynamics are what marketing gurus refer to as the result of your shift. On a spiritual level, however, you have turned into a unique, limited edition item that cannot be replaced and cannot be bought again. The psychological equivalent of learning that their favorite restaurant has permanently closed is what the rejecter is going through, except that the restaurant was a person who created flavors that will never be savored again. At this point, their psychological suffering intensifies to the point where it would seem lenient in compared to earlier forms of torture. The individual is suffering from phantom high syndrome, as addiction experts refer to it. Their brain is continuously attempting to replicate the neurochemical concoction that your presence once supplied. That particular mix of dopamine, oxytocin, and pure life force that you created in their system, however, cannot be triggered by anything else. Similar to a master chemist of interpersonal relationships. The withdrawal symptoms are getting worse than anyone could have imagined when the magnitude of what was thrown away gradually dawns on them, like idiots discarding jewels that were mistaken for ordinary stones. You continue to get stronger every day. In contrast, weakness feels greater. Every success you have serves as a reminder of the breakthrough they were unable to achieve because they chose fear above the excitement of falling in love with someone who resonates with you. Being emotionally reliant on someone who has attained total emotional independence from them is a humiliating situation for the former rejecter. A complete reversal that is changing how we think about power relations. This is what attachment theorists refer to as phantom bond syndrome. They feel as though they are bound to you by invisible shackles, but you have cut off all of the energetic cords that bound you to their world, so they are frantically tugging on ropes that aren't connected to anything anymore. It would be humorous, if not psychologically terrible, to see the addiction's progressively pitiful and desperate manifestations. People have complex imaginations about reconciliation. Since knowledge exists even in the misconception that you've progressed beyond the frequency of their regret, perfectly prepared apologies will never be conveyed. Like rewinding a film, scenarios are envisioned in which the error can be corrected. Even in your wildest thoughts, though, you get the feeling that you've changed into someone who doesn't see their previous dynamic as anything more than a cage that has already been broken out with keys carelessly given over. In the worst-case scenario, anticipatory grief is being felt. Mourning not only what was gone but also what you were becoming but will never be able to be found. While still in the cocoon, the butterfly was turned away. And now you see that you have wings that are untouchable, causing wind currents to flow that are sensed but never ridden. The fact that addiction feeds on memories of a deceased person is its most fundamental feature. The pre-transformation version of you was the one being desired. Like a plant needs sunlight, so did the person who needed acceptance. Who turned down the lights so they might feel at ease in the dark. Who, while they deserved spiritual banquets, accepted emotional breadcrumbs. That individual perished in the furnace of rejection. And someone who isn't even qualified to be missed came out of those flames. Realization of the full impact of your presence on their life starts to dawn as the infatuation grows. Before the supply was fully cut off, the services were not even known to have been received. You were more than just a person you spent time with. You provided them with emotional support, self-assurance, academic stimulation, growth motivation, and a glimpse into a more fascinating world. When they are left to their own devices, they discover that you were the one who made them feel funnier, more fascinating, and more capable than they actually were. Stories seemed more captivating because of the way you listened. Your perspective made imperfections appear endearing rather than troublesome. Your like spreads hope. Your comment builds community. Your subscription takes us closer to 40,000 voices. Without your energizing support, the person's conviction in their potential has temporarily collapsed back into a smaller, grayer, more ordinary version of themselves. It would be humorous, if not pitifully awful, to see how this withdrawal from your emotional support is showing up. They make an effort to mentally reenact talks with you, speculating about your everyday experiences and attempting to gain phantom approval for choices you won't even be aware were made. Because you can no longer access the genuine thing, you have become dependent on a fictitious version of your support. When you grab for your phone to text about random thoughts, the phantom limb effect is so intense that you realize you're no longer a part of their inner circle, or any circle in their life, for that matter. When you witness something that makes you laugh, you feel compelled to share it. When you realize that you no longer care about attempts at connection, you then come crashing back into reality. The most devastating realization is that everyone you meet is subconsciously compared to the emotional support you gave them, and everyone fails, not because others are insufficient, but rather because you have a special ability to see people's potential and show them love for it that no one else can. Addicts who have lost their dealer and found that no one else carries the same quality of substance have similar experiences. Your metamorphosis is not occurring in a vacuum. By continuously demonstrating your ascension, it is causing ripple effects that are reaching them through many avenues and intensifying their suffering. Your glow-up is being discussed by mutual friends with a mix of admiration and mild intimidation. Social media algorithms continue to display snippets of your privileged life. Every post is a dagger to a weakened ego. When there are frequent news reports about an unavoidable natural calamity, you may hear about your success through the grapevine. Someone says they saw you at a gathering where you easily held the attention of everyone. Someone else remarks on how much happier and more self-assured you appear to be, and how your energy has changed to become magnetic in ways that were not possible while you were lowering yourself to fit their constraints. What psychologists refer to as FOMO amplification is being created by the social proof of your transformation. As there is more proof that the wrong decision was made, the fear of losing out grows dramatically. Every detail of your new reality demonstrates that you not only moved past them but also advanced from them, reaching levels that are visible yet inaccessible. It feels like someone who lost a winning lottery ticket is desperate when they see how people are drawn to your energy. Your genuine attention is being given to new people as they enter your orbit. The same consideration that was eventually turned down and taken for granted. It happens when people see your passion as intensity, your depth as knowledge, and your standards as motivation to do more. The most agonizing thing is seeing individuals express gratitude for encouraging them to improve, for pushing them to grow, and for not settling for their substandard selves. These are the very traits that people have been complaining about. They are the same traits that have been called excessively difficult or labor-intensive. Now you see other people praising these qualities as proof of your worth as a change agent. Their rejection of you has become a public demonstration of their own limitations as a result of the ripple effect. Nobody is claiming that you avoided a gunshot. How could anyone let someone like that go, they ask. The story has changed, and it is now a cautionary tale rather than the good choice that was initially believed to have happened. The sensation transcends psychological fixation. It's entered the field of energy addiction, which uses frequencies that most people are unaware of. What quantum scientists could refer to as spiritual tinnitus has been formed in your energy field by your higher frequency. Even if you're not physically there, people can sense your frequency. Similar to a radio that is unable to completely block out a strong station that is transmitting from a different dimension. This intense haunting shows up in ways that are inexplicable but unquestionably genuine. In crowded spaces, you may feel a sudden change in the atmosphere that makes people aware of your presence, only to turn around and discover that no one is there. They detect familiar smells or hear melodies that instantaneously take them back to the energy signature of your connection, triggering a Pavlovian reaction that fills their system with need. Their body reacts to reminders of you before their mind even realizes what's occurring, since your energy has been ingrained in their cellular memory so thoroughly. When your name is mentioned anywhere, your heart rate goes up. When others catch a glimpse of your social media presence, you start to breathe shallowly. The thought of unexpectedly running into you makes hands physically shake. What spiritual teachers refer to as vibrational dependence is the result of an addiction to your frequency. Constantly withdrawing spiritually from that exalted condition after being accustomed to functioning at a higher level when in your presence. Unbeknownst to them, you were acting as their energetic elevator, taking them to levels of awareness that are inaccessible on their own. The energetic dynamic between you and your erstwhile rejecter has undergone the most exquisite and terrible reversal, resulting in what can only be defined as total power inversion on a scale that is rewriting the basic laws of your relationship. Like cosmic customs officers deciding what made it over the acceptance threshold, you were once sitting in judgment of your value. You now own all the leverage, all the cards, and all the power that once appeared to be firmly within their grasp, despite the fact that you are completely removed from their world. You are not intentionally using this power shift as a weapon. They are unable to resist against it, which is why it is so utterly destructive. You're not secretly planning their psychological demise or coming up with complex schemes to cause them to suffer because they are blind. You're just being yourself in all your glory, like a sun that never feels bad about being so bright. And their entire world is being pulled off its meticulously kept axis by the gravitational attraction created by the contrast between your brilliance and their remorse. Every morning they awaken to the weight of their own foolishness, like Atlas bearing the weight of their own miscalculation. Every accomplishment you make, every barrier you break through, and every restriction you break with your own strength is tangible evidence of their terrible lack of discernment. You're not merely thriving while being rejected. That's why you're successful. Converting rejection into gasoline for your powerful self-actualization machine. And that insight is consuming them from the inside out, destroying their mental clarity like acid. However, the power inversion is only part of the truth. You've simultaneously transformed into something you never anticipated and most definitely weren't ready for. A live mirror that contrasts their true selves with their false selves, requiring a brutally clear confrontation with the difference between one's own character and one's self-image. Everyone else feels shallow in comparison to you, like shallow puddles after experiencing the ocean, and every encounter with others is now evaluated against the depth you have experienced. There are several stages to the mirror effect, and each is more destructive than the others. On the surface, it seems like other relationships are nothing compared to the passion and genuineness you brought to the table. On a deeper level, however, difficult realities about one's limitations, incapacity to manage real closeness, dread of emotional intensity, and preference for cozy lies over revolutionary truths are all required to be faced. The mirror's ability to reflect lost potential back in high-definition clarity is the most heartbreaking of all. It shows what someone who saw their ultimate self and loved toward it with unshakable faith may have been. You catch glimpses of the version of them that only existed when you were around. The one with more depth, humor, vitality, and genuine expression. In your absence, that person has become dormant, and as their preoccupation with your metamorphosis grows, they begin to mourn the passing of their own best self while witnessing you assist others in accessing theirs. Having to face an identity crisis that threatens to undermine one's self-concept. In their lives, you were more than simply a person. You served as a mirror reflecting their best attributes back to them. And in the absence of that mirror, they struggle to recall their best selves. Your approach to them evoked facets of your personality that had lain dormant throughout your absence. They had potential in their dreams, depth in their insights, and humor in their eccentricities. They were able to briefly overcome their own limitations because of your faith in their skills. When your energetic reflection is gone, you're left with a much duller, smaller version of yourself that feels like you're wearing clothing that don't fit. You come to the realization that your identity was partially formed by your eyes, and that your absence has left a gap in your identity that no one else appears to be able to fill. You view them differently than others do. Jokes don't make other people laugh with the same sincere joy. Growth is not challenged by others with the same seamless blend of encouragement and prodding that you did. Most devastatingly, suspicion starts to grow that they were only their best selves when they were with you. That your distinct perspective on and admiration for people was what sparked latent potential. Because it implies that it is impossible to find someone who is just like you, this understanding is causing existential panic. Nobody else is like you, and the version of yourself that you displayed might never be seen again. Messages like these can be heard by anybody, but few people will actually act on their full potential. That's what we're here to help you with. You've been waiting your entire life for this moment. The weekly Selected Ones group calls are now available on Zoom. These gatherings are actual power vortices where fates are shaped and selected individuals merge their minds to produce something that is impossible to exist separately. Everything changes at this point. You enter your brilliance at this point. A portal opens once a week, but only for those who dare to enter. Members of the Obsidian Inner Order at the Watcher level can participate in these life-changing experiences and feel the energy flow through their whole body. Participants in our most recent meeting were astounded to learn that the enormous pyramids of Giza were actually highly advanced ancient power plants and that the layout of Washington, D.C. exactly matched the Kabbalistic tree of life. Members of the Star Chamber have unrestricted access to the whole collection of recordings. An abundance of knowledge that increases in value every week. This is the moment that defines you. There is nowhere else to find the information, the connection, and the power that come through these calls. Now join the Inner Order of Obsidian. While there are still a few Star Chamber spots available, click the link in the description. Not only is your presence appreciated, but it is required. The call has been ringing in your soul. Will you answer it? The moment has come as psychological suffering reaches new heights and enters what grief counselors refer to as the bargaining stage, which is heightened to pathological proportions. Reconciliation-related imagination scenarios get more complex. Every time you give, you break the spirit of lack. A $50 seed into Holy Voices is declaring abundance over your life. Since accepting the permanent nature of loss has been too psychologically painful, each one has become more desperate and unrealistic than the last. Being the ideal spouse for you has occurred in these fantasies. Mysteriously changed into someone who can appreciate your zeal and equal your energy. Arriving at your door with the ideal speech that admits faults and exhibits newly discovered development is unimaginable. You come up with excuses that are so well written, so emotionally astute, and so well suited to your particular style of thinking that you would have to give it another opportunity. But even in the most imaginative delusions, you get the feeling that you've moved past the frequency of their regret, that the person you were imagining reconciling with is no longer there, and that you've changed into someone who wouldn't even be interested in revisiting the past with someone who didn't show that they could handle your gift the first time it was offered. Fantasy. As the pointlessness of a viewpoint becomes apparent, reconciliation scenarios become increasingly desperate. Chance meetings in which you are in some way vulnerable and want their assistance are envisioned, generating chances to demonstrate that change has taken place. Create detailed situations in which your common friends step in to help you get back together, or in which an outside disaster makes you realize that you are still needed in this world. The most pitiful thing about bargaining is that it is impossible to imagine someone deserving of you at your current level, even in fantasies. Attempting to communicate with a pre-transformation version of yourself. Not being able to understand that the person you become functions according to such high standards that their former dynamic could never be recreated. These fictional worlds act as psychological comfort food, reducing anxiety over the irreversibility of loss for a short while but escalating withdrawal when reality returns. Keeping in mind that even the darkest, most intense periods of fixation now involve total irrelevance to your real existence, which cannot be altered by any amount of hypothetical reconciliation. A reality so terrible that it could destroy what little sanity remains starts to emerge in awareness. There is full accountability for causing the exact nightmare that is currently being experienced. Their own decisions, constraints, and inability to acknowledge what was possessed when possession existed are directly responsible for every facet of their current suffering. Because your intensity was rejected, there is now an addiction to it. There have been complaints regarding your standards, and there is currently a desperate attempt to meet them. You're drowning in the emptiness of too little after being called too much. The adventure of growth was foregone in favor of the security of mediocrity. And now it feels like psychological imprisonment because you are stuck in a reality that is so ordinary. The predicament's cosmic justice is so flawless that it appears to have been planned by a universe with a perverse sense of fun. Someone more manageable was desired, and now there is a great deal of ennui due to the lack of difficulty. In order to avoid stagnating in comfort zones like water in a stagnant pond, someone who wouldn't encourage progress was desired. It was desired to have someone who would accept constraints, but today's self-imposed ceilings are suffocating. Every day spent worrying about you is another day that they choose to stay trapped in a nightmare of their own making. They have become the architects of the psychological torture chamber. They've always carried the cell key in their pocket. It is possible to decide to go on, learn from the experience, and develop into a person deserving of the kind of relationship that was lost. Rather, they continue to choose to be hooked on failure, addicted to regret, and unable to stop poking at the wound they have created. They are stuck in the amber of regret like ancient creatures trapped in their own constraints. The sovereign period, as spiritual alchemists refer to it, is upon you. A stage of life in which you are the unchallenged master of your own reality, deferring to no outside authority for your value, your path, or your criteria for what you will and will not accept in your life. It is not arrogance to be so sovereign. Its true power has at last been released from the cage of other people's perceptions. And everyone around you can see the difference right away. A fundamental change in your way of moving through the world, subtle yet profound in its ramifications, is what defines your sovereign period. You don't ask for permission anymore. You give it. You don't ask to fit in anymore. Everywhere you go, you establish a sense of belonging. You no longer wish for approval, like a great builder of human connection. Who has access to your energy is up to you. Similar to a cosmic bouncer at your mind's club. There is weight to this sovereignty. A force that pulls individuals into your orbit while also letting them know that they are with someone who chooses to include them even though they don't need them. An important distinction that has a profound impact. People can tell when someone is acting confidently to cover their insecurity or when they are acting from true self-possession. And like a tuning fork resonating at the frequency of genuine power, your sovereignty resonates in their neurological system. There is nothing more glaring or damaging to their sense of self than the contrast between your sovereign era and their frantic attempts to reestablish themselves in your story. They operate from a scarcity awareness, thinking that love is a limited resource that needs to be guarded or fought for. However, you've learned that true power is limitless. When that love is truly expressed, it grows. When such regard is freely offered, it grows. When used wisely instead of manipulatively, that influence grows. They are distracted by the paradox that your metamorphosis has made you both more approachable and more impenetrable than before. Although you are impervious to trickery, you are receptive to sincere connections. You are totally unavailable for drama, games, or emotional terrorism of any kind, but you are accessible for real relationships. You're ready to fall madly in love, but you're not willing to ever lose yourself in the process again. Realization strikes with the force of a meteor as you witness your sovereign age develop from the sidelines. Like spectators at a game you are no longer eligible to play. There is a chance to be your equal partner in this higher reality and to rule with you in this kingdom of genuine power that you have built. Rather, you made the decision to be your judge, and now you are neither judge nor partner, just unrelated to your reign, footnotes in the epic story of your ascension. You remain blissfully, passionately, magnificently unaffected by their entire psychological journey despite all of this, including their obsession, withdrawal, frantic fantasies, identity crisis, bargaining, and gradual recognition of responsibility. This lack of concern isn't icy or callous. It is the natural state of someone who has so fully overcome the need for approval from others that they are no longer affected by the opinions of people who are unable to see your value. The ultimate manifestation of your power is your indifference, which shows that you've accomplished something that most people never do. Finalize internal verification. To feel good about yourself, you don't have to make them suffer. To know you made the proper option in moving forward, you don't need them to regret their choice. You can feel desirable without them pursuing you. Their entire emotional journey around losing you is practically meaningless to your experience because you become so internally referenced, self-contained, and fully sovereign in your own worth. This is the last turn in your story about the villain age. You're not even attempting to play the bad guy. You're just making decisions based on your high standards, enjoying life to the fullest, and acting from your true strength. And their own psychological suffering is being caused by their incapacity to deal with that truth. In their personal drama, you've turned into the unintentional antagonist. It's an unavoidable force, not because you're aggressively after them, but because your very presence serves as a reminder of everything they decided not to become. And now we reach the selected one, the ultimate reality of your path. Everything comes full circle there, but at a totally different elevation. You have accomplished something far more potent than retaliation, more fulfilling than validation, and more comprehensive than defeating them. You have triumphed over the aspect of yourself that formerly required their approval. Furthermore, this triumph is unchangeable, unassailable, and totally unassailable by them. Recall how this realization started when your energy was so strong that it could bend reality to your will. Every move you make shakes the trust of those who believed they could control your power, and every word you say reverberates in the thoughts of those who once rejected you. Now, that prophecy has come to pass, but not in the way anyone had anticipated. Your energy is now more than just indisputable. It is changed into something so powerful, so polished, so magnetically strong that it functions on frequencies that are incomprehensible to most people. The rejection that initially appeared to be a closed door has turned out to be your life's biggest awakening. Every dismissive moment, every scathing remark, and every effort to dim your light was intended to make you into something extraordinary rather than to destroy you. No one pushed you away. You were launched into an area free from the constraints placed on you by brains too small to fully appreciate your potential. Your time as a villain is not over. It's solidifying into your legend era, which is much more powerful. People now use you as an example of what may happen when someone doesn't allow rejection to define who they are. You are a living example of how being rejected by the wrong person can just lead to the correct path. The rejecter is stuck in the amber of regret, permanently frozen in the moment of their biggest error. That every no from someone functioning at a lower frequency is actually the world telling them, not yet. You're meant for something greater, like a bug ensnared in ancient sap while you keep developing, growing, and reaching heights they can't even fathom from their narrow perspective. Family, our vision is 40,000 strong. Subscribe to Holy Voices today and let's lift our light together. They have become into archaeological relics in the museum of your own history, fascinating to look at once in a while when you're feeling sentimental, but wholly unrelated to your present situation and helpless to change your course. Most exquisitely, your story has perfectly symmetrically gone full circle. It started with their incapacity to recognize your value and ended with your total disregard for their blindness. You have evolved into the person you were always intended to be, completely unstoppable, magnificent, and free from the judgment of those who failed to see your worth when it counted most. Like the last plot twist in a well-written story, the greatest irony of all becomes apparent. Selection truly took place in their attempt to reject you. They chose you for greatness, for change, and for a destiny so big that they had to dismiss you as a catalyst. You were cutting the ribbon on the great opening of your wonderful life, even as you thought a door on your relationship was being closed. This is your everlasting triumph, selected one. You transformed their dismissal into your dominance, their rejection into your resurrection, and their desertion into your elevation. It is now impossible to escape the power that is trying to be escaped. Not because you are pursuing them, but rather because your influence has grown so strong, so indisputable, and so ingrained in their surroundings that it is impossible to breathe without feeling the weight of what has been lost. You have been selected. You can't be stopped. The force that is unavoidable is you. And this amazing. The story of your metamorphosis is just the start of the stories that will be told. You have been shaped into something more powerful than you could have ever imagined by the cosmos working together to create this very moment, this awakening, and this perfect storm of rejection and resurrection. And while you continue to rise to heights that are visible but unachievable, creating a legend that can be witnessed but never again participated in, the former rejecter, the person who once had the authority to accept or reject you, finds themselves totally at your mercy, addicted to a drug that is no longer accessible, hooked on a frequency that is no longer available to tune into, and forever plagued by the ghost of their own enormous miscalculation. Beloved soul, if this message has spoken to your heart, don't let it end here. Click that like button so the light can spread to more people who need hope. Subscribe to Holy Voices so you never miss the next word heaven has for you. And leave a comment below. I read every one, and I pray over them. Remember, faith grows when we share it, so share this message with someone who needs to hear it today. Until we meet again, may God's peace cover you and His voice guide your every step.